There is the stereotype of the angry Filipino. I say that as a Filipino. And most of my uncles and aunties, sorry, uncles and aunties, if you're watching this, have a little bit of that.
This is Worldschooling Q&A. I'm Astrid, creator of The Wandering Daughter. As a traveling family, we've spent 4 years traveling full-time to over 18 countries and 6 continents. Wherever we go, we try to learn as much as we can about the countries and cultures we visit. While we didn't coin the term, we like to call this worldschooling, using the world as our classroom. Each week, my husband Clint and I will answer one question about worldschooling and share our experiences of traveling the world with our kids. Ready to get started? Great! Let's dive in. All right, this week we are answering the question, how do I world school in the Philippines?
Well, the Philippines is a very popular destination among world scholars, very popular destination among digital nomads, and for a lot of reasons. One being it's incredibly beautiful, and 2, it's really affordable for Westerners.
Yeah.
And I think there's probably 2 main reasons, because it's definitely not for internet, but we'll get into that later.
Clint, tell us why you personally would want to visit the Philippines.
No, I don't have any connection.
No connection.
No, my family's Filipino. I grew up in a Filipino family, or at least half Filipino. All my mom's side is Filipino, and we went to the Philippines for the first time when our daughter was really young, and then went back again as world scholars. So yeah, Philippines is definitely a big part of our family.
Yeah. And, a lot of people think that I'm Filipino, but I'm not. I always like to say I'm Filipino by a proxy.
Yes. Just like I'm Indonesian by proxy.
But we do like traveling there. And there's kind of a little bit of a laid back culture in some ways, I feel like. Well, if you go to like the islands and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like Mexico in that way, and we can talk about the connection there. But it's like Mexico in that way, in that people work hard, but they're kind of laid back and, for the most part, very friendly. There is the stereotype of the angry Filipino. I say that as a Filipino. And most of my uncles and aunties, sorry, uncles and aunties, if you're watching this, have a little bit of that. But anyways, logistics. So like Indonesia, it's an archipelago. It doesn't have as many islands as Indonesia. It has 7,000 islands. It was a former Spanish colony for 300 years. Like Indonesia, though, it maintained its languages, primarily, all their tribal languages, but then eventually Tagalog became the official language of the Philippines. And so it's actually regarded as the only former Spanish colony, that does not speak Spanish. So that's cool.
Yay, Philippines.
And unlike Indonesia, though, the Tagalog language, which is the official, they call it Filipino now, that language is ancient. I mean, it is.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess we can clarify, like when Indonesia became independent from the Dutch, they chose like a language, or they created a language that was kind of based off of Malay, because that was the trade language, but they created a language to unify everybody. In the Philippines, what happened was that when the Philippines became independent, Tagalog became the official language because it was just the language that was most spoken.
Yeah,
had the
largest ethnic group. So it's 7,000 islands, similar in Indonesia, where Java is the largest island. Luzon is the largest island. That is also where originally the Tagalog language originates from. And so that's most populous. That's where Manila is, the capital city. Yeah. So that kind of is the geography. Below that, you have Cebu, which is another popular island, Palawan, Boracay, which is where all the like famous, gorgeous resorts are. So if you see a photo of the Philippines resort, and it's people snorkeling and sunbathing, it's probably Boracay. Yeah.
So there's major airports like in Manila. I think there are airports in other parts too.
Yeah, for sure. Manila is the major airport. A lot of people will fly into Manila unless you're going to one of the other islands. So if you're going to like Cebu, for example, which is a popular tourist destination as well,
Yeah.
you just fly into Cebu directly. Likely, if you can Boracay. I don't think you fly into Boracay, but you can fly into Cebu and go to Boracay via ferry. So once you get on the islands, island hopping is mostly done by ferries. There are some regional flights, but I think most of it is done by ferries. And ferries are anywhere from a couple hours to 8 hours long, depending on where you're going.
But the ferries are the one we went on one, and it was cool because it had like bunk beds. You could different classes. We got one where the bunk beds were like a little bit more like cubby type, secluded, and then they gave us sheets. So I had like padded mat and stuff, so you could take a rest on the ferry.
Yeah, it's really nice. I mean,
and we got a meal too with it.
It reminded me of U.S. ferries. They're very well kept. They're very updated and modern.
Yeah.
Speaking of U.S. logistics, there's a huge military presence from the United States military for a long time.
They had occupied.
Yeah, they had occupied. Even Philippines were under American control at one point. So having said that, there's a lot of former bases around, especially around the Luzon area. And so those have all been turned into duty-free areas now at this point.
Yeah, so shopping, tax-free shopping areas.
Shopping. But so there's there's parts of Luzon you'll drive through and you'll notice that, this looks very much like Southern California, for example. There's just a lot of influence there. And a huge Filipino diaspora lives in Southern California. And that's where my parents are, or my mom is, and all the family. So yeah, there's similarities there. What about getting around other than like between islands?
Yeah, so within the islands, I think Philippines is known for like a special type of public transportation called jeepneys. And they're actually jeepneys because they're like former like military jeeps, right? Yeah. That became transportation.
Yeah, they were decommissioned after World War II. And then,
So now it's just part of like the public transportation. You hop on a jeepney, pay like your fare, they have like routes and stuff. It's a little bit, if you don't know where, it can be a little bit intimidating if you don't know where the route is, but that's sometimes part of the fun of traveling is like, okay, well, let's get on this bus or let's get on this jeepney and see where it takes us.
There are a few tips for that. I think one, if you have your Google Maps open while you're kind of following along, you kind of figure it out. Learn the word for stop. Stop is, you can use the Spanish word for stop. Se pare, that works. But there was another word we were using and I can't remember offhand. I'll look that up.
Yeah.
Just learn that. And then usually the amount is listed somewhere on the thing, but you can also just ask anyone around.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot of English spoken in the Philippines, even if just a little bit. Yeah. We've noticed even so along with jeepneys, there's also tricycle drivers, and they'll take you anywhere as well, like pedicabs, basically.
Yeah, or like rickshaws, auto rickshaws.
Yeah. But so many of them spoke English too. Like English is actually spoken a lot more, I think, in the Philippines, probably because of that U.S. influence.
Yeah.
But tips to jeepney. Usually it's just down back and forth on one street. So that's the route. It very rarely goes off onto other streets. So it's usually just one street. So you can usually if you're in a big city like Manila, you can take a jeepney down one street, jump on another jeepney that goes down another direction. The fee is usually really, really low per person. A lot of times they don't charge for kids.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of an art to it. You hop onto the back of the jeepney. Sometimes that's as moving. If they start pulling away, you can still jump on the back. You just go run up and jump into the back of the jeepney. You sit at the furthest seat closest to the door. So whatever's open, you don't try to jam your way up front.
Yeah.
You sit wherever the next seat is available, and then you pass your money up.
Yeah.
Don't walk up to the front of the jeepney and pay.
Yeah.
Like pass your money up. If you don't have change, that's okay. You pass your bill or whatever up.
Yeah.
It goes up. Every person, they'll make change.
And then they'll pass it down.
So even if you don't know how much it costs, just hand them a bill and then they'll pass it up and then they'll pass it back. And if you don't have enough money, they'll kind of they'll kind of signal to you.
Yep.
Give another bill. It gets passed up, and then they'll pass it back down.
Yeah.
That's one way you get around it.
Yeah. We had fun doing the jeepneys when we were in Palawan. So, yeah. Can you talk about internet?
Okay. I kind of like poo-pooed it a little bit at the beginning, but for justified reasons. Unless you're in Manila proper, I think, or maybe some of the other bigger cities like Olongapo, Baguio, maybe. I don't know. We didn't really try it when we were in Baguio, but the internet is not great, and the cell service is not that fast either for data reasons.
Yes.
It maybe, be fair, it's been several years since we've been there.
Yeah. So it may have improved by then.
Yeah. We just know that like we were in Palawan, Puerto Princesa, mostly Puerto Princesa and Palawan, the island of Palawan. We were there for a month, I think, maybe a little bit more than a month. It was tough to work from there. We just had spotty connection, kind of slow connection. And it didn't matter where we go. I mean, you'd be in the mall, you'd be in the center of the city, on the outskirts. It just was not great reception. And we even had local SIM cards. It wasn't like we were. So we did all the things that I do for internet backups. I just couldn't find a good solution.
And at the time, I was doing a lot of work that required like phone or like video conferencing. And occasionally, like I'd get dropped or the connection would be very unstable. So if you're planning on working while you're traveling through the Philippines, just keep that in mind. That it might be a little bit frustrating at times to connect.
Yeah, and getting a SIM card and keeping it filled is a little trickier than most places too, because you buy a physical SIM card, and then you have to go to a different store, sometimes the same store, and get it loaded with minutes, and it's two different transactions.
Yep.
And you can't do it over the phone. You might be able if you had a Filipino bank account, but as a foreigner, you have to go into a store to get it refilled. And you basically just buy minutes, and then you have to call in a phone number and then get those dollars transferred to minutes. So it's a little bit cumbersome. You get used to it after a couple times. That was a little bit tricky. Driving in the Philippines, I don't know a lot of people that drive on their own in the Philippines. Other than like my Filipino relatives.
Yeah. And when we were there, we hired a driver, like both times that we were there, we hired a driver to like take us to the different parts of Luzon.
That seems more common. It's just to hire a driver or take public transportation. Manila has a subway or an MRT, so it's like a metro. I don't think it ever goes underground. I think it's all overground or above ground.
Yeah.
They have all sorts of transportation throughout the city.
So what about like visas and currency?
So currency is the Filipino peso. It's similar to rupiah, I think, actually, as far as it's similar more to pesos, Mexican pesos. It's not quite the same rate, but it's similar conversion to the US dollar. What was the other thing you asked?
Visas.
Oh, visas. I think for U.S. citizens, there is no visa required.
We didn't really need a visa.
Yeah.
But if you're from another country, there might be. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But,
I think it's pretty easy coming in. Yeah. I think it's a 6-month limit. I don't think there's a 6-month tourist visa. We actually, coming into the Philippines, was probably one of the, it was kind of like Mexico. It's pretty easy.
Very easy
for us to come into Mexico or come into the Philippines. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about some highlights of our travels through the Philippines. What were some highlights that you enjoyed?
Well, speaking of driving, I mean, we didn't drive. We hired a driver, like we said. But one of our first trips there is we road tripped around the island of Luzon, which is the main island. So we started in Manila, and then we sat in Manila traffic for 14 days. And then once we left Manila traffic after 14 days, our trip was over and we came home.
No, Manila traffic is bad. I think it took us several hours just to get out of the city.
Yeah. So anyways, no, we went Manila into kind of the countryside where my family lives. So that was nice. We saw them. Nothing really from a world schooling standpoint, I don't think. If you do have family or you have friends of family, Filipino families are, I'm probably biased on this, but they're very open. They love to share their lives.
until you're like rolling out the door.
We'll talk about the food in a minute. It might be a problem if they're trying to feed you all the time, but they will feed you. I mean, they're like, it doesn't matter like what economic status they are. It doesn't matter if they're barely getting by. They will like offer you food whenever they see you.
The generosity is like amazing.
Yeah. And so road tripping around Luzon was amazing. I think some of the highlights of road tripping around Luzon was Baguio City. Baguio City is super popular.
Well, that's the mountain town, right?
It's the mountain town. So everyone loves it because it's the one place you can go in the Philippines that's cool and not blazingly hot and humid.
Yep.
So you can go up there and it was beautiful. I mean, really gorgeous views. It can get a little tricky getting up there if it's heavy rains, like during monsoon season. Yeah, that was really nice. Subic Bay, a former military base, U.S. naval base. It's right at the edge of the town of Longapo. And so it's actually where my parents met years ago. And Subic Bay is now a duty-free zone. Lots of cool little resorts and hotels along the water there.
Yep.
A really slightly sketchy safari place, but that's okay. Not very animal friendly, at least when we were there.
Yeah.
What else? What are some other highlights?
You know, I actually liked being in Manila as much as we like complain about the traffic. One of my favorite parts, and you know, being a history like lover, I really did like the central part. Is called intramuros.
Yeah, intramuros.
Within the walls. And so you can still find like the Spanish colonial architecture there. They have like, I remember we rode like one of those like horse-drawn carts, the calesas, I think is what it's called. And just like seeing that part was really nice.
Yeah, in Manila Bay, which is also in downtown area, absolutely beautiful. They've done an amazing job in the last decade of cleaning Manila Bay a lot. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a gorgeous park there. It's a great place for like picnicking. Great place for yacht watching. We saw some incredible yachts when we were there. Manila is one of those places, kind of like Singapore. It attracts really rich people. And so it was incredible. Makati City is known for like its kind of fashion world and kind of its like high-end, its opulence a little bit. So Makati City is just a neighborhood of Manila.
Kind of like a suburb, right?
Yeah, it's like I think it's more like a neighborhood.
Okay.
But yeah, so I think that was cool. If we never got there, but if you can get up north, the north end of Luzon, there's the mountain region, and that's where you'll see the famous like rice terraces. You get further and you can get to Bigan, which is like that whole area is got heavy Spanish colonial influence. So someday we'll get up there. It's big. So when you start trying to road trip around it, you can spend weeks there road tripping. So it's pretty big. What about other parts other than Luzon?
Well, we spent a few weeks in Palawan, in the city of Puerto Princesa, and I really liked that. I enjoyed, it was a good, like, there were small little museums that we could like visit, and I think there was one that was like a military museum, and you kind of learn about the history of U.S. occupation, which kind of came about. I feel like it was post in the 1800s, right? The U.S. came. There was like the end of the Spanish-American War, and Spain was like, "Oh, okay, fine. We'll give you the Philippines," and that's where we got it. But we didn't really like, right? Or am I?
We have to check it because I think actually the way I remember the history was World War II. Spanish colonialism ended at the end of World War II, kind of dissolved. Spanish really didn't want to do anything with it anymore. In America, it was like, yeah, we'll help you out. And then they're like, yeah, now you're kind of ours. And then that lasted kind of shortly. And then eventually the Philippines gained their independence from the U.S. But we don't quote us on any of this.
I know. As much as I love history, I also am like, I don't pay attention to the facts.
Well, it's hard. There's a lot of history. Sometimes you forget. Right?
But what was cool about this museum, going back to this museum, was you saw like there was a whole exhibit about World War II, and as Americans, we focus our thinking about World War II is very like Eurocentric. That it's like because that's where it started, right? Like you've got the Nazis and then the Allied forces kind of trying to
Yeah, it's fine.
fight.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway.
Focus on the Nazis.
So it's like
the
all
enemy. Yeah.
focused on Europe, but we
Germany
forget.
being the enemy. Yeah.
But we forget that there was also a whole like Pacific Ocean fight going on too, and so we like that museum was great because it showed like the Pacific, like the things that were happening in the Pacific during World War II.
Yeah, specifically, it's from the U.S. standpoint, we think a lot about like it was Germany, and we don't really think about Italy as much. In fact, Italy's kind of almost erased from our memories when we talk about World War II. But we do talk about Japan, but we only really talk about Japan in the context of Pearl Harbor and of the end of the war with the atomic bombs, right?
Right.
And so we don't really talk about the Japanese influence on World War II at all. But then when we were in the Philippines, it was all about the Japanese part. Like, in fact, there was a little section about the Nazis, but it was very like benign and like these guys were just part of the war. They weren't really like big. But Japan, because Japan occupied the Philippines and there was so much destruction and death, the Bataan Death March and things like that from the Japanese side of things. Intramuros is all about that. I mean, that's where the Japanese like basically kept Filipino prisoners of war, and that kind of stuff. And so they focus heavily on the Japanese influence.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it was interesting. And having said that, another place in Luzon that we really liked was the Botanical Gardens. And that was heavily sponsored by the Japanese as part of the reparations.
Yeah. Afterwards. So it was really, it is interesting to see like what you're saying and like, Japan's role in the past and like how they're trying to make amends for the things that they did to the Philippines.
Yeah.
Speaking of Palawan though, nature is a great, like nature in the Philippines is like, I think there's some good things about it for world schoolers.
Yeah, I mean the Philippines is gorgeous.
Yeah.
When you talk about Luzon, when you start to get in the mountains and north, and you get some of the nature. I think Manila and stuff is mostly city, and even the outside is mostly like kind of barren hills.
Yeah.
But Palawan, Cebu, Boracay, I mean, these are the places you see pictures out there. They're gorgeous beaches. They're lush jungles. It's just it's the Philippines. If you've ever seen vacation photos of the Philippines, these are the ones you see. These gorgeous blue oceans, almost green, just so clear, and then incredible snorkeling.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so I think from a nature standpoint, and quite a bit of wildlife too. The jungles are filled with lots of different wildlife, so it's incredible from that standpoint. We didn't get to explore as much of that. We did a lot of snorkeling.
Well, and then we did visit the subterranean river, which is like a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But that was in the island of Palawan as well. So that was a cool, like, again, if you're into, if you want to like get your kids interested in geology and stuff, you can, before you go on the river tour, you can like learn about like stalactites and stalagmites and like what are the differences between the two and like how a subterranean river might form and things like that. So there's a lot of good like science-based learning opportunities there.
Yeah, that was incredible. That was a huge highlight for sure.
So let's talk about the food though. This is the last thing on our list that we were talking about. And I kind of want to like give it a mention because I think that was something that we were surprised about.
Well, before I start on my side, because I have a lot to say about it, what was problematic for you?
So as a Muslim, I don't eat pork. And I think a lot of Filipino food is the food culture is based around pork. I mean, big pig roasts are like the way that people celebrate. And so it's hard for me to be able to like enjoy the food if there's like it really limited the amount of meals or the amount of dishes I could try because of that.
And so I'm sure you don't say that from a perspective of, oh, why don't, shame on them for eating pork.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
not what I was trying to
Yeah.
come across as.
It's more like it speaks to the lack of diversity in the food selection.
Yep.
And I think that's the biggest crux for us. It could be that we just came from places like Indonesia where the diversity of food is immense. I mean, you have everything from on the meat side, from pork to seafood to beef to
And
chicken to
goat.
the vegetables and fruit side, which has
Yeah.
I mean such a huge assortment of vegetables and fruits. We were thinking the same was going to be in the Philippines when we first
Yeah.
came. And we were okay. Before I say this, I am a huge proponent of Filipino food in the US. I cook Filipino food. I'm an advocate for Filipino food.
There's some fantastic Filipino restaurants in the US, in Seattle, in New York City, in I think even still in DC, right?
In London too. We were in London. They had some fantastic Filipino food. Like, I'm a huge proponent of it. I want it to grow in popularity. It's always kind of been under the radar cuisine. And then we went to the Philippines, and we just could not get away from rice and meat, and mostly pork-based meat.
Yeah.
Or fried chicken.
Yeah. So the meat was like very heavy sauces or heavy like in sauces to go on top of the rice, or it was fried.
Yeah.
And there was not a lot of vegetables or fruit in the selection that was at least available for, a traveler's consumption.
And now we have heard, obviously I have family that lives there, and we have like heard, well, the reason for that is because the vegetables and the fruits are usually grown at home. And so it's really easy to grow vegetables and fruits because of the climate and things. So you grow those at home, you cook that stuff at home, or you buy it raw at the markets. And we did see when we go to like private food market or small food markets, yeah, you could buy a bunch of veggies and stuff in their raw state. In their raw state. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And then so a lot of that stuff was then cooked from home. So when we went and visited family and things like that, we ate really well as a diverse.
Yeah, but it's just in the restaurants. It's like I guess maybe it's because like if you're gonna go out to eat, you're not gonna be eating the food that you cook at home.
Yeah.
Right. You're gonna be eating like things that will take a long time to make, or that will be like what you think as high value food versus vegetables and fruit, which anybody can grow. So it has low value.
And we often say like
it's interesting, like shift in mindset.
Well, because almost every other country we've gone to, it's this mentality of like, oh, the US is just a sample of what that cuisine is. But once you actually go there, it's like really authentic and different, and there's more diversity in the meals and stuff. What we kind of found though is that the UX actually had, and maybe it's because the Filipino diaspora here, but like the US actually has a more diverse selection of Filipino food, cuisine, than what was actually in the Philippines.
Yeah.
At least the areas that we were in. And it's not like we were in isolated areas. We went all around Luzon. We were in Palawan. We went to a small island called Tablas Island. Like, we were around different areas. So I know it was a consistent experience for us from that standpoint.
So that said, like if you have certain dietary restrictions, like, me, where you don't eat pork, or if you're vegetarian, it may be a little bit harder for you to find food like in the Philippines. I mean, you'll still be able to find it, but you may have to like ask for, changes in the menu or things like that.
Yeah, I think your two best bets are to either cook yourself.
Yep.
Or if you want Filipino food, befriend a Filipino family or know someone that you can go over to their house and they'll cook for you. In Puerto Princesa, there was a really great restaurant that was right next to the Malacon, and that had a pretty good selection. It had a bunch of different fish or different seafood, but it had a bunch of seaweed and vegetable sides and things like that. But it's also one of the pricier restaurants too. Yep. So it's tough to say. But yeah, I think that was the thing I wanted to say about food.
Yeah. Well, to just end on a good note, though, what do you think would be like the one thing that world schooling families shouldn't miss out on when they go to the Philippines?
I think you should. I think you should go for the nature.
Yeah.
I mean, the beaches, the snorkeling, the jungles. It's incredible and absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. I agree.
And the people are. I mean, it's just a very hospitable like mindset there.
Yeah.
And they genuinely are caring. Now, having said that, going back to safety, like there are some petty theft is really big, especially in the cities, Manila, Baguio City, that kind of stuff. But that's because the economy there is a little bit lower. But, I mean, all the people we met are just, I mean, even the guys that give me a hard time for not speaking Tagalog.
Yeah.
They're still nice.
So go to the Philippines. Go to the Philippines for nature.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so.
Well, that's all for today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of World Schooling Q&A with Astrid and Clint. Be sure to check out the show notes for any links we mentioned in the episode, and visit my website, thewanderingdaughter.com, to dive deeper into world schooling and family travel.
If you like what you hear, please consider supporting The Wandering Daughter on Patreon. It really helps us out and keeps the show going. You'll also get exclusive perks like episode transcripts, additional resources, access to office hours with us, and more. You can find us on Spotify or the podcast app of your choice. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you can tap the bell icon to get notified when new episodes come out. And if you like this episode, please give us a 5-star review. It really helps new people find our show.
If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap the bell icon to get notified of new episodes. You can follow me on Instagram @WanderDaughter or follow The Wandering Daughter on Facebook. Links to these are also in the show notes. If you have any world schooling questions you'd like us to answer for future episodes, feel free to throw them in the comments or send us a message at thewanderingdaughter.com/podcast. Until next time, happy travels!
Bye. US, we've gone here. Bye. It's lovely to see you again.
We're recording, yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
Recording. Okay. Get the camera.